You spend $1,000 for an iPhone 12, Apple profits 50% of your purchase. Today, we will talk about the 12th largest company in the world in terms of revenue, at about $260 billion per year, size similar to the giant automaker Toyota. But of those 260 billions, Apple makes a profit of 55 billion, while Toyota only has 19. Almost just a third of Apple's despite similar revenue. This is because when Toyota sells you a car, that's it for Toyota. You now have a car and won't come back for a new car for as long as 10 years. Even if you do come back for a new car 10 years later, you might decide to get a Volkswagen this time around, or a Nissan or a Ford. For Apple, when they sell you a device, that's just the beginning for them. After that, when you buy into things such as iCloud, Apple TV, Apple Music, Apple Care, etc., Apple profits 60% of those purchases. The richest people are so rich that the 26 richest people on earth hold the same wealth as the poorest 50%. But none of them is rich enough to purchase all of Apple shares on their own. In fact, 21 richest people are needed to combine all of their wealth if they want to buy all of Apple shares. In some sense, besides similar revenue, the Toyota comparison that we drew turns out to be a terrible one, because Toyota is merely a player in a highly competitive automotive market. A very good one, no doubt, but Apple is the competitive market itself with the digital world it has created. So, this is today's topic for a unicorn company like Apple. How is it interacting with the non-digital real world? Is it making sure its money-making process is as sustainable and friendly to our planet as it can be? To uncover how much carbon Apple emits, we need to firstly understand how Apple operates. Apple is a product designer. It designs a product. That design is sent to an external party for manufacturing. In total, Apple has somewhere close to 1,000 suppliers. These suppliers order their raw materials from mining companies and recyclers. An example of an Apple supplier would be Foxconn, a Taiwanese company that is responsible for final assembly. After Foxconn, your Apple device is now ready to be shipped. The shipping company delivers the device to you or to an Apple store for you to pick up. And that is the hardware side of the Apple business. On the other side is of course software. Apple develops the iOS system and Apple services. For example, the Apple App Store. All the services are hosted in Apple data centers. With these services, creators can find a platform and a market for their content. Regardless of which side, Apple profits from every transaction that is made. All Apple transactions more or less happen in these ways. By tracking how Apple transactions happen, we can start seeing where Apple's carbon emissions can come from. The easiest one is where Apple corporate offices are, and then Apple stores and Apple data centers. All these facilities have one thing in common. They are all directly owned by Apple, and Apple can dictate how they are designed, how they operate, and what energy they can be powered with. For example, the Apple headquarters, Apple Park, is a good example of Apple's approach to managing its own facility for minimum carbon emission. This ring-shaped building can be naturally ventilated for up to 9 months in a year, so it achieves energy efficiency automatically by design by not having to operate energy-intensive air conditioning, which normally accounts for more than half of building energy use. On top of that, its roof solar installations are one of the biggest in the world. Apple Park is 100% powered by renewable energy, and for that reason, it does not actually contribute to Apple's carbon footprint. This philosophy of efficiency by design plus renewables is actually applied throughout Apple's facilities. As a result, all of Apple's directly managed facilities are now carbon neutral. Apple Park is obviously something that Apple can control directly, but our second source of emission is actually what Apple can't control directly. It's us, the users of Apple devices. We, the users of Apple devices, are the second largest source of emission for Apple. All Apple devices require electricity to run, which is usually from the charging at our home. As of today, because most of the world is still using combustion-based technology such as burning coals to power our homes. For example, by watching this video, you're emitting carbon to the atmosphere right now, just not right here. indirectly through the energy supply that you have and the electricity generator that they actually operate. The energy that is charged into everyone's iPhone and other devices amounts up to be responsible for about 20% of all of Apple's carbon footprint, just because there are about 1.65 billion Apple devices actively running out there. Not being able to exercise control carries onto Apple's biggest source of emission, and it's our third source of emission that we will cover today is Apple's suppliers across the world. As of today, almost 50% of Apple's supplier facilities are located in China. While Apple has been investing in renewables for its Apple stores and data centers, it is unrealistic for us to expect Apple to fly across the ocean and start installing solar panels on the roof of suppliers who are regulated by a completely different government and also supply electronics not just for Apple but also for other companies, Apple's competitors like Samsung and Microsoft. At the end of the day, Apple is just one client out of many. This will explain why 70% of Apple's carbon emission comes from the third-party suppliers. Despite many of its suppliers are not transitioning into fully renewable energy anytime soon, Apple is actually going an extra mile by itself to try to lead its suppliers in the renewable energy game. It does so by sharing knowledge about how Apple managed to make their own facilities 100% renewable to begin with. It has also funded 4 gigawatts of renewable energy for its suppliers via investments, equivalent to directly reducing carbon footprint of 3 million tons per year. However, this is still far away from carbon neutrality for Apple. Apple emits more than 20 million tons of carbon dioxide. Amongst all the devices Apple is responsible for, iPhone is by far the most popular. Apple makes about 200 million iPhones per year. On average, people would hold on to an iPhone for a little less than 3 years. Given that Apple's ecosystem is the most rigid digital ecosystem that's known for being very hard to get out, when you have used up your iPhone for about 3 years, you would consider getting a new iPhone. Very unlikely that an iPhone user would switch to any other brand. So we are safe to assume that there are in total 200 million per year times 3 years to obtain 600 million first-hand iPhones in current existence. In order to manufacture one iPhone, Apple emits about 100 kilograms of carbon dioxide, equivalent to driving a car for 600 kilometers, and this is by far the largest component of Apple's carbon emission, and certainly also the most challenging for Apple to neutralize. You see, these are the numbers that we have come up with, and these numbers lead to the biggest carbon emission for Apple, 70%. As we know, Apple's manufacturing process is outsourced. Even if they own their own manufacturing plants, it would be very challenging as of today to make the processes 100% carbon neutral just because of the sheer size of Apple and the lack of readily available low carbon technology for manufacturing. Even if we cannot reduce how much carbon is inevitably emitted with each iPhone made from a technical sense, there is still an option that Apple can choose to go with. A managerial option if Apple choose so, and that option can very easily cut down these manufacturing related emissions by half. That is, make less iPhones, or put it in a better way, make longer lasting iPhones. Let's say Apple has decided to double its iPhone's durability and repairability so good that people will now hold on to an iPhone for double the amount of time, 6 years. Assuming the total amount of iPhone users in existence won't change, is still at 600 million. Now Apple only needs to manufacture 100 million iPhones per year, effectively halving its carbon emission from manufacturing alone. But this, of course, would come at a huge opportunity cost for Apple. If Apple keeps the price at the same level, Apple's revenue and profits from iPhones will also go down by half if they choose to go with this route. Overall, in conclusion, the industry-leading Apple is indeed demonstrating industry-leading sustainability strategy. It is already operating carbon neutral in facilities within its direct control. It is trying to export its philosophies of sustainability to its suppliers to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. But because Apple doesn't have direct control over its customers nor its suppliers, for Apple to become truly carbon neutral, it will have to wait for the entire supply chain to slowly reduce their footprint over time. In the meantime, although very unlikely, if Apple does want to double down on carbon neutrality, it can try to extend its product lifespan, which will have very pivotal and very direct impacts on reducing the current amount of carbon emission. This solution would no doubt come at a very deep cost unless Apple can somehow recover the profits from Apple's services on the software side. For example, pushing out a subscription-based model. If you want to know how much carbon emission was the direct result of making the exact iPhone that you hold, I will include the table in the description below. But we as consumers need to ask Apple for truly sustainable products for the first domino to fall. Because if there is one thing that Apple is very good at and very proud of, it's about delivering what the customers want, even if it sometimes makes up the minds for its customers to want an Apple product to begin their journey with. Watching to this point, I know you sort of enjoyed what I made here. This channel will make an effort to present things that are related to how humans can sustain ourselves amid mega challenges. For every sub to this channel, I will personally remove 1 kg of CO2 from our atmosphere. Subscribe and present to you another 1 kg CO2 video. Thank you.